Hello and welcome to the Weekend Booktopian. I'm Mark Harding, Content and Brand Manager for Booktopia, and this is a podcast about the books that we're reading. Joining me today are Category Manager for Kids and YA, Sarah McDuling. Hello, Sarah.
Hey.
And we're also joined by Category Manager for Lifestyle Books, Shanu Prasad. Hello, Shanu.
Hello.
And we're also joined by Merchandising Coordinator Cass Sharp. Hello, Cass.
Hey.
So first we're going to discuss a little bit of book news, then we'll delve into the books that everybody is reading, and be sure to stick around until the end of the show when my guests will go head-to-head in a book quiz battle for trivia supremacy that we like to call Book Fight. So first up, news, Midnight Sun came out last week. Sales figures have started to roll in, so we can see what the actual impact of this massive Twilight book is. Sarah, why don't you talk us through what's been going on?
Okay, so since it was announced that Midnight Sun would be coming out, I think it's like 12 years since Stephanie Meyer first started talking about this book, which is a companion novel to Twilight, written from Edward's perspective. The whole book world has been speculating, is the appetite still there? Do people still care? Will it sell in a similar way to the Hunger Games prequel, or will it outsell the Hunger Games prequel? And now we know, and the answer to the question is it will sell loads. It sold 33,000 units in its first week, which is massive. And I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Shanu, that it is the fourth biggest week for her sales all up, including all of her books through time.
That is correct. In a single week.
Yeah, in a single week. So including all of her bestseller books, and she's had a lot, this new one has done the fourth best week of sales, which is, it really goes to show that the Twilight fans are definitely still out there and still hungry for more, which is, I mean, in the industry, when you're trying to guess how a book will sell, you look at past books, and since the series ended, there have been two Twilight releases. One of them was a novella, which I've forgotten the name of. This is a Brie Tanner. You know what I'm talking about? The something life of
Brie Tanner.
Second Life of Brie Tanner.
Yeah.
And that was
short.
a little novella from the point of view of a side character in the series that sort of meets a brutal end. And then they also had on the 10-year anniversary, Stephanie Meyer released a version of Twilight where it was gender flipped, and the Edward character was the girl and the Bella character was the boy, and that was called, I think, Life and Death, or Life or Death. Life and Death, I think. And,
I just remember it had a green apple on the cover.
That was the one with the green apple on the cover, yeah. And neither of those books did amazingly well, right? Like, I mean, they were by no means, like, they sold, but they just didn't sell to, like, the heights of the Twilight books. And so with this one coming, I think there's a lot of question, like, will it be like those books, or will it reach the dizzying heights of the Twilight series? And it has reached the dizzying heights of the Twilight series. So as Kids and YA category manager, I am very pleased.
Has anybody had a go at reading it yet?
I have read it. I read it in one night.
Shanu was
with
hero,
no sleep.
like.
That's like, it's not a short novel, is it?
It is not short
No.
at all. It is very long. It is much longer than the original novel, which is ironic considering that it is the exact same. I don't know, ironic is probably not ironic. It's probably Alanis Morissette use of the word ironic, but
Let's go with interesting.
that it is the exact same book. It is the exact same book. It starts at the same spot. It ends at the same spot. The same things happen in the book, but it's just a lot longer. Because the main difference I felt, because I don't also, to be perfectly honest, I read the books, all of them, but I read them a very long time ago when they first came out and not since. What I have done since with Twilight is watch the movies. So my recollections of Twilight are all about what happens in the movies, which I know is not what exactly what happens in the books. So when I was reading this book, I remembered all the events because the events, the basic events are all the same, but it's all the detail that I couldn't remember. And I was like, oh, is this new information that we're getting for the first time, or was this actually in the book? And as a person that hadn't read the book for however many years it's been out from, I did not know that. And I had to go onto the internet and find super fans who did know all those things to answer those questions for me. So it was definitely an interesting experience. And I think I would have enjoyed it a lot more had I not had to go to work the next day.
I'm just so impressed that you did it in one night.
And
I have not.
A full day's work.
Yeah. I haven't started to read it, and I'm not totally sure. I don't know. I was trying to remember how much I remember. And if you ask me what the plot of Twilight is, isn't it just that she meets a boy at school and then there's a lot of conversations and then they go shopping for a dress and then they play baseball?
And
That's the first one.
That's the plot.
Yeah.
And everyone wants to eat her, and she runs to like some ballet studio that Alice has visions of,
being that he
but
wants
she can't
to kill
tell
her the whole
Edward.
time. And she wants to make out with him the whole time.
Yeah, and the guy from the OC tries to kill her at the ballet studio.
Yes. Which is ironic.
Oh.
That is really ironic because Bella is very uncoordinated. True irony.
And she was also in Burlesque, which is another movie we can talk about another time.
Well, it sounds like Twilight is back, and I believe that we're going to be doing a special Twilight themed podcast next week. So stay tuned for that.
Yes.
When you guys have when Sarah's finished reading it, and you guys all.
You literally start recording as soon as she closes the book.
This is going to be fun.
Yeah, maybe I was almost toying with the idea of reading it because my husband has ordered a copy because he's a big Twilight fan, and I've only ever seen the first film, so I'm very unfamiliar with it. So I wondered whether this as an entry would be good. But when I found out how long it was, I was like, yeah, no.
No. Plus, also, it is the same book, so it would be better if you had not read the first book and then watched the first movie and watched the second movie. Then you could have read the first book. From his perspective, it would have been fine.
I wonder if there are people out there who are like, I'll begin here, and they've not seen the movies and they've not read the book, and now this is going to be their first Twilight experience.
I don't mind.
Done, okay. What was I going to say? God, there was something. You just need the memes, Mark. You just need the memeable moments. That's all you need for Twilight, I feel.
That's half the fun of jumping on these bandwagons. Like, however you feel about the franchise or however much you like or dislike it, being part of the cultural moment is always fun because, basically the memes.
Yeah, who doesn't love the memes? All right, moving on to our next news topic. There's a couple of new big Netflix adaptations that are on the way. Enola Holmes, based on the Nancy Springer book series, and a fresh adaptation of Daphne du Maurier's classic mystery novel, Rebecca. So what are we looking forward to the most, and what do you hope that the creators get right in terms of these adaptations? Why don't we go to... let's go to Sarah again first.
I'm super looking forward to both. I actually haven't read the Enola Holmes books, but they look super fun, and I'm a big Sherlock and Sherlock adjacent storytelling fan. Plus, it's a great cast and it looks fantastic. I am a big fan of Rebecca. That's like I've read it numerous times, and I'm really excited to see that one. I think maybe slightly more excited for Rebecca.
Oh, I'm the opposite. I don't love the story of Rebecca. Like I'm not saying it's not a classic and it's not great, but that is when I'm like, what will I choose? When in my very limited amount of time that I have to watch, watch TV, what do I like to watch? Something that's going to depress the hell out of me, or something where like Sherlock Holmes' sister gets to be like a badass and like solve all these crimes back in Victorian England, and I'm like, yep, I'm going to go with the happy solving crimes one.
I hear you, and I don't fully disagree with you, but I wouldn't have called Rebecca depressing. To me, it's like gothic, and
yes, which is to me depressing.
Capital R romantic.
Yeah, like it's so deliciously gothic. It's gothic in the way that Twilight is gothic.
Yeah, but some might argue that Twilight has a happy ending. I don't think anyone would argue that Rebecca does, right? Really?
Well,
Okay.
Sarah,
Maybe-
spoilers for the TV.
I wouldn't change the ending.
I'm not saying I would change the ending. I'm just saying I wouldn't call it happy. I mean,
What do you think of the casting?
of which one?
Not familiar with either of these things, so
Oh,
this is all new
okay,
to me. But
so-
the Sherlock Holmes' sister one sounds amazing.
Oh yeah, and that was really interesting because there was the drama around it when what happened? Someone tried to sue someone. Nola Holmes. Anyone remember?
Yeah, the Sherlock Holmes escape.
Yes, there was the estate,
Tried
right?
to sue this show for suggesting something about his character that was actually positive, and I can't remember.
Oh yeah, but I'm finding out now.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. No. I think we have to say the casting of the Enola Holmes. We forgot. It's Millie Bobby Brown and Henry Cavill versus Lily James and Armie Hammer.
Oh, wow.
I'm not
interested.
Yeah, like I'm definitely if of all of those actors, my favorites are in Enola Holmes, I think, but I still love the casting of the Rebecca. Like I love those choices.
Who's been cast in Rebecca?
Lily James.
Lily James is the unnamed heroine.
Yeah.
And Armie Hammer is the dude whose name I've forgotten his name. What's his name?
While you look that up, I can tell you that the reason that the estate of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle sued Netflix was because the movie's depiction of Sherlock Holmes having emotions and respecting women violates Doyle's copyright.
So funny. Like, how dare you portray the character of Sherlock Holmes as respecting women? That's not canon.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
You've got which is great.
The character whose name I had forgotten is Maxim de Winter. Isn't that delicious?
That's a pretty good name. Oh, also I forgot about the other really amazing people in Rebecca. Okay, fine. I will also be watching Rebecca, but
Kristen Scott Thomas.
Yes. Which complete side note, but I was watching an old episode of the Graham Norton show and Miriam Margolyes was on and another actor was on who was in a movie with Kristen Scott Thomas and Miriam Margolyes says, "Oh, I always thought she was such an awful person." On the show. It was very funny. And everyone else was like horrified and laughing, but horrified. And the other actor was like, no, she's such a wonderful person. She's so nice and so wonderful. And Miriam Margolyes was like, we'll see.
That is very funny.
Amazing.
But yeah, she will be amazing in it. And Keely Hawes from Bodyguard, which I watched recently, will be in it too. So I wonder how true they'll stay to the story
of Rebecca.
Yeah.
I don't think they should change it. Do you think they will?
It's out in October, so we don't have that long to wait.
Yeah, this is true.
To find out.
We can
all right.
come back and see.
Shall we move on to what we've been reading? Let's start with you, Cass. What have you brought?
So yesterday I finished Radio Silence by Alice Oseman, and that was a pick by the Krusty Crew Book Club on Twitter, run by Shanu, who's a booktuber and has picked diverse, interesting books. So this month's theme was YA, and it's about the head girl, Frances, at her school who seems really boring, but she's secretly obsessed with this podcast, and she finds out that she actually meets the creator of the podcast, and it leads to like this whole mystery about what happened a few years ago. And there's a lot of stuff about like gender and identity and family, and there's a little bit in the background about privilege, particularly with education and racism. And yeah, it's just, I really enjoyed it. I flew through like 100 and something pages in one night without stopping. And Alice Oseman writes books that, well, this is the first of her books that I've read. I've read Heartstopper, which was recommended by the lovely Sarah McDuling. She just popped it on my desk and she's like, I think you'll like this. And then I forgot to write a review for it. But I loved it. Anyway, it's very... Exactly. I reviewed it this last month as my favorite book, the second volume. Anyway, so this is very much for people who also love podcasts, who also love fandom culture, and kind of just learning more and discovering more about themselves. And I really enjoyed it because it was very dialogue heavy. which I'm not one for like huge like chunks and pages of description because I just get lost in it. So I really enjoyed that. And there's also transcripts from the podcast, and yeah, it just felt very real and very genuine. And I kind of like, I don't know, because I'm 27, I kind of wish I could go back and tell like 17 to 18-year-old me that like to not stress out quite so much about like the HSE and things, because there are other options, and the book does talk about that and like the pressure students put themselves under, and also parents and like schools kind of put kids under to do really, really well. And I loved it. And the other one that I started this morning is The Fandom, which I borrowed from the library, about these kids who've gone to Comic-Con to meet the stars of their favorite movie based on a book, and they end up like transferred to the world of the book. Yeah, so they've just like ended up in a coliseum, and like one of the main characters has died, and they're freaking out because they think it's a cosplay event, but not.
I love that.
It's really cool.
Please, you're reading that. I remember that book. I remember really enjoying that. And it's cool that you read Alice Oseman, because she's one of those authors where you keep hearing amazing things about the books, and I see the sales of her books are, you know, coming through, and they're really good. And so like I've got so many of these authors that you kind of helicopter around going, oh, I think I'm going to try them, but I don't know which book. And, you know, so I've just got a bunch of her books on my wish list, but I've never read any of them. And so this recommendation, I think, is just going to push me off the edge. And I'm going to read that one, I think.
Is that her newest one?
No, I think her newest one's a novella called Loveless.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I saw that kind of more autobiographical.
I love her covers.
I haven't read that yet.
They're
I've got
really
it.
strong.
Yeah, but Heartstopper is also going to be a TV show, I think. Like someone
That's
bought
gonna
the
be so
rights to it
good.
last year. And I was like, oh my god!
Is there any YA novel that's not going to be a Netflix show now? I feel like they've got them all.
No, because you know why? They do really well. So why not? There's also like that other show just dropped on Netflix. I think it only dropped like the other week, or maybe that's when the algorithm told me about it. But Get Even, which was based on
that's based on books.
Yeah, that's based on books. And then I think, is it Stan or Amazon? One of them getting into the action as well. And I think maybe it's Amazon. Like Our Chemical Hearts by Crystal Sutherland's coming out next week. And yeah, it's great. I'm all for it.
Yeah, no, me too.
Well, thank you for your recommendations, Cass. Let's move on to Shanu. What have you brought?
Well, again, I just, obviously, apart from Midnight Sun, I read 2 other books on the weekend. I read one which was also very much like a fandom kind of book, but not Comic-Con this time, because I have read a lot of those, which is quite funny because I don't really read or watch lots of comic type things. But this one is called What I Like About You by Marissa Cantor. And it's about a girl who is a YA bookstagrammer, YouTuber. She's got like her hook is that she's cupcakes and books. So she kind of started like making cupcakes inspired by the YA book she was reading. And then she got this massive following. And her she started it under a pen name because her parents are well-known documentary makers. Is kind of an oxymoron, but, unless you're Michael Moore. And her grandmother was like an editor, like a really well-known children's book editor. And so in the YA book world, if like she went out there with her real name, then people would know who her grandmother was. And then she wanted to be like, make a name for herself, as you do. So she and her younger brother move in with their grandparent. So their grandmother the grandmother who we're talking about has just died recently. And she has this, like, she has all of her friends are basically online because her parents are documentary makers. They usually move all around, around a lot. So she doesn't have any, a lot of like in IRL friends. I felt really old reading this book, by the way, of really real teen speak that I am not part of anymore in my life. And so she has this guy, Nash, who's also an amazing artist who also has his own, online presence. and they're best friends in the online world. And then she moves to this town, and she goes to the library the first day and looks up, and he's there, but he doesn't know her as her. He only knows her as her online name. So basically, it's a trilogy, like a love trilogy. What's it called? I've completely forgotten the term. A love trilogy, love triangle. That's the one. A love triangle, but there's only two people. Because the whole book, she doesn't tell him who she is online. So she gets to know him as herself in real life, and then keeps talking to him not in real life. And as you can imagine, this does not end well for everyone, but it's quite funny. The best part of the book, though, is how it's all about, the YA bookstagrammer kind of culture and the online culture. And it's really clear, there's a whole bunch of stuff about how, YA books are for young adults and not for adults, which is ironically that we're all adults talking about YA books. Because one of the main plot points is that there's this YA author who is very successful and was one of the reasons that this girl became quite well known, because she did a book cupcakes made of like the book cover and pushed the book really hard. And then this book is being made into a movie, and then the author comes out saying, I don't know why you keep talking about it being a YA book. This is a book for everyone, and basically disowning her YA fans. So there's this huge backlash on like Twitter and online, and people trying to boycott the movie and stuff. So it's like it's just really fun, and it made me feel really old, but I feel like young people would really like this book.
This sounds so much fun, and you're reminding me of a trope that I really like in YA, which is that, and it's only cropped up, I guess in the last decade or so, which is that now that young people have these ways to become really famous within fandoms, it allows for these great stories where like people have secret identities and they're really famous online, but they don't reveal this to their friends or to their family or to the love interest or whatever. And it's great. It reminds me of stuff like Geekerella, Eliza and Her Monsters, Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. Like all of these people who are like, you wouldn't know it, but they're actually like got millions of followers on some kind of social platform. And it just it's kind of like being a secret superhero, but more real life. Yeah. And achievable. It's achievable.
But this girl was expected, because she's like, she's like doing school. She's like, basically it's a full-time job, this thing that she does. Like, she's got like hundreds and hundreds of thousands of like followers, and she's creating content all the time. And it's really funny because she pitches this idea she pitches for to be the one to do the cover reveal of this other YA author's next big book, and it's like the biggest thing that's ever happened to her, right? But you can imagine on the other end, like we what we deal with in PR people and stuff, that
like, oh god, we've got to manage a cover reveal. It's so annoying.
And it's actually a little reminder that of why we do the jobs that we do, is so that for the people that get to be able to like read the book and love the books. And we love the books too, but sometimes when you're doing the work, you forget about that part of it.
Yeah, look, the magic of a cover reel, it becomes less magical when you're at the other end trying to upload a cover at midnight. So that no one will see it before they're supposed to see it.
But she has to go through a lot. She does a lot with her cupcakes. So, and it's a lovely story about family as well, because and growing closer to people. And it's also got a really strong element of like kind of the Jewish tradition in there as well, because their family is Jewish, but the grandfather is a bit more traditional, and does a lot of, and goes to temple and does a lot of stuff. And she meets a lot of the people, basically most of the people that she meets are Jewish, and it's like tiny like little town up in on near the coast of somewhere in America. So that was quite an interesting perspective, that it wasn't just your usual. There was like other elements in there as well. So that was that was actually really fun. It was a really quick read too. It sounds like I read it took me hours and hours, but it was like a couple of hours and I'd finished the whole thing. So it was great. Very quickly, I just mentioned this other book that I read, which I absolutely loved, but I loved it so much because of it's based on one of my favorite books. So this new book that I read is called Love, Jacaranda by Alex Flynn, who may be more familiar to people from the Beastly books. So she's written a whole bunch of flipping fairy tales and doing sort of stuff with that. So this one is based on a book written in 1911 called Dear Daddy Longlegs by an author, Jean Webster, who was like very well known at the time of while she was alive, and is probably a bit less well known now. Got a bit of a bump back in the 50s, I think, when Dear Daddy Longlegs was made into a movie with
Fred Astaire. I forgot all about that. Oh my god.
In that movie, it's best just to read the book Dear Daddy Longlegs, because the movie is not. The reason it's called Dear Daddy Longlegs, the original book, is because the guy that she's writing to has very, very long legs and is very tall, which is not what you would say about Fred Astaire. Anyway, so this book is basically an updated version of that book. And it was done so well. I was like, how in the world would you be able to update? Because there's a few things about the original book where you're like, pretty sure that person's going to be another thing with a bit of a weird age difference. Pretty sure this girl is 15.
Right.
And this guy must be like 40, which back
Somewhat
then
questionable.
wasn't as weird, but now it's like not good. But the way they managed to make that not be what happens in this book was very, very clever. So I loved it, but I don't know if everyone would love it as much if they hadn't read the original. I think it's a really great book, but I loved it a lot because of reading Dear Daddy Longlegs and having that being one of my childhood favourites.
You've inspired me to read both the original and the retelling.
Because there's a sequel to Dear Daddy Longlegs called Dear Enemy. So,
is this of the same oeuvre as like or at the same time as like Pollyanna and Pollyanna Grows Up and like all of those books?
Yeah, I think so. I can't remember exactly when Pollyanna. I think Pollyanna was written a bit later, maybe in the 40s. Or from the 20s to the 40s, but this was definitely early 1900s, the original ones. And, it's great. Goes to a boarding school, has a mysterious benefactor, doesn't meet them, doesn't know who they are, and writes letters that basically turn into the form of a diary because
and it's an epistolary novel.
Ooh.
Yes. So highly recommend both of those books.
So it's
I
not
used to have
about-
such trouble with epistolary novels, and the thing that cured me of it was the Illuminae series by I was like, I hate reading books when they're in letter format. And then I read a book that was not just letter format, but it was IM speak and like documents and emails and, all found documents like put together in a dossier being the Illuminae series. And after that, now I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Bring on the epistolary novel.
This is more like a diary. So, because like I said, there's no letters you get back. So it's all from her perspective. And she basically uses the letters as things that you would never normally put into a letter to a stranger, but you can because she doesn't know who they are.
And in the retelling, she doesn't like chat online to the Longlegs character.
Sorry. The letters are
The Longlegs character.
like they form the same thing. It's just an email address is the same as sending something, putting the letter and putting it in a letterbox. It's just the email form. But yeah.
I'm sold. I'm ready. I'm going to read them.
You could do like a queer update of that where it's like some guy chatting like instead of would like a grinder chat count as a
media form
with somebody called Daddy Longlegs? I can just imagine that happening. Anyway.
Yeah, but you set yourself a real challenge because now you have to try and bend the story of a mysterious benefactor who allows you to like go and study in an expensive school, but is also chatting to you on Grindr, which feels.
Yeah, no, that's not okay. No, this is nothing like that. It's not like that. The other great part about this book is that she gets sent to like a performing arts school, which is lots of fun because then you get all of the talk about musicals and stuff that I love anyway. So it was like a mashing up of all the things I love into one book. So I was like, thank you.
Excellent. All right, Sarah, what have you brought along?
So I already slightly started segueing into this because the book that I want to talk about is by Amy Kaufman and Megan Spooner, and it is called The Other Side of the Sky. And this is the first book in a new duology from these guys. They have previously written the Starbound trilogy, and then they had the Unearthed duology, and now this is the first book in this new duology, and I adored it. Like these guys can do pretty much anything, and I will like. The reasons why this book is so good are a lot to do with the world building, but also to do with the dynamic between the main characters, which I'm really into. But the basic setup is that it's kind of, I guess it's a post-apocalyptic world, which is, probably maybe our world, but it's kind of not important. Like it could be any world. It's a world that once had.
I need to know if it's meant to be our world or not. Like I need to know.
I kind of think that it is. Like, there's enough clues in there for us to say, look, if this isn't Earth, then it's somewhere that had an age very much like our present Earth.
Yes.
Because there are
I think
things,
it's that, but with the magic, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and so this is what I really love with, like, you've got your post-apocalyptic stories and your, like, dystopian stories, and then you've got the rare breed of the post-apocalyptic story that is science fiction and fantasy, and that's what we've got here, and I love it. It puts me in mind of books that really informed my childhood and turned me into a reader, like the Obed Newton series by Isabel Carmody, where it's like, you know, recognizably our world, but in a far distant future after some terrible apocalyptic event has brought us all back to, like, medieval times, and what has risen up in the ashes of this form of society is like a kind of magical society, and that's what's happened in the world in the other side of the sky. So the scenario is a little bit, if you're familiar with the show The 100, what you glean pretty quickly when you enter this story is that at some point in the past, like, all of the people who were cashed up and had money left Earth for a space station world where they could live away from the poisoned Earth. And then they left a bunch of people behind. And those people have, instead of dying out, as everyone expected, have evolved and have this new, like, society that has these magical elements in it, and they worship a living god, a living goddess. And so the main characters are sort of a prince from the sci-fi, like, floating city or spaceship, or how do you envision that?
They're not in space, though, are they? They're
kind of in the air, yeah, but they're not.
They're not
like,
like
I imagine them to be in space, because it's not like the people
no,
down on the
really?
Earth can look up and see the city. Like, they don't see it.
No, but he explains that by saying there's really thick cloud cover, so we can't see through the clouds.
Okay, so maybe they're still in the atmosphere.
Yeah, I think they're still in the atmosphere, because there's no mention about anything, and they're using gliders. They're using gliders, Sarah.
Yeah, but I thought that there might have just been some, like, protective force field around the city in space.
No, because if there was a force field, they wouldn't be able to just,
like a dome.
Anyway, you'll have to explain what happens in the book.
Yeah, look, it's a floating city. It's a floating city with strong sci-fi elements. So
it's powered by that amazing device that they have in a lot of science fiction, which does whatever the plot needs it to do.
Oh, well, on that subject, no, because
no, it is.
with these guys, they always make an effort to make it believable. So there is internal logic with it's to do with magnets, and, like, the world building is found here. I may not have. I can't envision whether the city in my mind was floating above the clouds or in space. But
Definitely not in space. I'm 100% telling you it's not in space. We can check with the authors when you do the podcast, but I'm 100% sure it's not in space.
Just be like, where's the city that all this happened?
It's in the air. It's above the world, and also, just so you don't spend much time there. We pretty quickly, the prince of the floating city has an accident which crushes him down to Earth, and he meets the other main character, who is the living goddess of this society, and has been sort of picked out by prophecy at the age of 5 to as the next aspect of this goddess that they've all worshipped. And so, you know, they meet, and then what proceeds is this fantastic story that it's like one part forbidden romance, because her whole thing being a goddess is that she cannot be touched ever. She can't touch another human being. And so you can imagine the kind of, like, crazy forbidden romance you get out of that. We were, Shanu and I, talking about how it reminded us of the show Pushing Daisies, which has concept where if they touched, then that's it. It's all over. One of them dies. And so in this world, if they touch, she loses her aspect of the goddess, and it's, like, terrible. So there's that going on. It's beautiful and delicious, and there's so many cute wonderful YA romance moments with that. Like, just I can't get enough. It's beautiful. And then on the other side of things is this intense story where it's very prophecy driven. And the thing that I love about in fantasy and stuff when there's a prophecy is that it just allows you for this whole extra layer of storytelling where you're like setting an expectation of an outcome for the reader, but then you're playing a double game where it's like, we all know the prophecy says this and it's inescapable and we've got to get there and this is what it is. But no one ever quite knows which parts of the prophecy are real or which will be interpreted differently. And there's always this twist where it's like the one thing we thought was like fated and inescapable turns out to be misinterpreted. And so I kind of love that. I love when a prophecy kind of allows the author to pull like a switcheroo on the reader. And you're like, oh man, I didn't, you know what I'm talking about.
I do it in a really good way. As soon as one thing happened in the book, which I can't talk about to spoil it, but as soon as that happened, you're like, oh, now I know what's going to, now it's making sense.
Yeah, it's like, they're not the one, the other one's the one, and it's all not what I thought. Yeah, it's very much like that. Yeah. And but just a warning for anyone who's about to pick it up in September 8th when it comes out. It is the first book of a duology, and so you can expect to be left at a quite painful cliffhanger while we await the next book. So there's that, but that's part of what you go in for with series. You always know they're going to leave you dangling.
Yeah, that's why I don't normally read them until they're both out. But I made the same mistake with Unearthed as I did with this one. I couldn't wait. It sounded so good that I couldn't wait. And I don't regret having read this book, but I'm really annoyed now that I'm going to have to wait probably another year for the next one because it
would be great delayed gratification. Like just for a moment go right against my whole purpose in my job, which is to say buy the book now. But you can always buy it now and then wait and read it when the next one comes out and really like do that delayed gratification.
Yeah, maybe book 2 will finally reveal whether they're in the sky or in space.
They're definitely in the sky. I'm trying to find
No, look, they are in the sky. But the way I imagined it, they're in the sky. But the way I imagined it was kind of that there was always the night sky above them, like for some reason, even though I'm sure it was daytime sometimes in that.
Yeah, especially when he talks. That bit when he talks about the birds that fly in the air above. Like, don't you have? Because they don't eat animals up there. They don't have animals, but they do have birds. So that would be pretty hard in space.
But like high up in the sky, like not like high up so that people below can't see them. It's not like they're just hanging out waving to the people down.
No.
But then, like, birds don't fly that high unless they're special magnet birds.
But they've got flyers, so they would be able to leave the city and fly around. And I guess
actual birds in the world. That's why. But the clouds. I think whatever the event is that made them go up to the clouds, they obviously above the clouds. They obviously, something maybe the clouds are extra thick. They're just really thick clouds. That's what.
And I think part of the reason that my brain kind of imagined them like way, way, way up, like out about beyond our atmosphere, is that they believe that the Earth is poisonous. So like, if it's poisonous down there, why wouldn't it be poisonous?
Well, look, I would say it really sounds like the questions for your interview with Amy write themselves.
What also is if you look at the cover is probably why I thought that the two of them were sitting above the the main character was sitting in the clouds, but then I realized looking closer that they're just sitting on a high.
They're sitting on a rock.
Yeah, on a rock. Yeah. So who knows?
But is it floating or not?
Everyone can judge for themselves when they get the book and read it. And then actually we should do a poll so people can reply whether they think it's actually.
You know how I imagined this in my mind, the city? I've just realized where my point of reference was from. It's from a movie.
What movie?
So when I was reading
this book, and
I was imagining the city that they live in the sky, it was 100% the city that Lando Calrissian is from
Cloud
in
City.
Star Wars.
Cloud
That's
City.
how I saw it in my head.
Right,
gonna
okay.
say-
Well, there you go.
Yeah, it does remind me a bit of Alita Battle Angel, which like I might be the only person who's seen. But basically, like, I don't know, there's this whole story about how like the rich people who live well lives in like some city in the sky, and everyone else just like lives in a world made of like the trash that they throw out or something. At the
That's
bottom.
like this, except the trash is they live in the world, which is a kind of a swampy, mysterious place full of like spell fire and unexplained magic. And
It's also a
and
pretty
there's
practical place that they live in, down on the ground. It's a practical place with magic.
Well,
magic is a thing that exists in the world though. Like they
But
all
it makes
believe in it.
we could pick this world apart for an entire podcast, but we're rapidly running out of time.
I think we're just trying to avoid doing the quiz, Mark. I think we're just doing.
I really don't want to do the quiz. I hate the quiz.
Okay,
You're hurting his feelings.
I've tailored it for you guys. It's really
All right.
okay. All right, so it's time for book fight. What words are you going to buzz in with, Sarah? What's your buzz in word?
I don't know. Lando Calrissian.
Lando Calrissian. Very good. Cass, what's your buzz in word?
Paganini, because I keep watching Two Set Violin videos and they keep doing videos about Paganini covers.
Shanu, what's
I don't know
your
anything about covers.
Pressure is on Shanu.
and could I just suggest using a one-syllable word so that you can...
I was going to say it's definitely not in space, but
That's a
whole
phrase, Shanu. It's not a word.
I'm going to shorten mine to Lando to make it easier for myself.
I'll just say clouds.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. All right. Question 1. So buzz in to answer. All right. Question 1. Name every book in Sarah J. Maas's A Court of Thorns and Roses series so far, including the new one due out next year.
Oh, Lord.
You guys should know.
I don't know if that's possible. I don't know if any of us can do that.
I definitely can't. I haven't read any of them.
I'm going to, Lando, and I'm going to try.
Go for it.
Okay.
Can you repeat the question?
Name every book in A Court of Thorns and Roses so far.
Okay.
including the new
So
one.
number 1 is A Court of Thorn and Roses.
Very good.
I believe number 2 is A Court of Mist and Fury.
Very good.
And now I'm in trouble.
There's been more than 2.
What did I just say? Wings and Fury? Something to do with Ruin.
You said Mist and Fury, but Wings is part of the next one.
Wings and Ruin. A Court of Wings and Ruin.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then
And then,
the title for the next one's been announced as well.
oh no, I always get this wrong. So my brain wants to say that it's A Court of Silver and Flames.
Yeah, I'll give you that. It's A Court of Silver Flames. I'll give you that. And you said you wouldn't know. That's 4 points for you.
Well done. I had no idea, but as soon as you said them, I went, "Oh yeah, I have heard that of that title before." But I
So what is the new one? It's Silver and Flames or Silver Flames?
A Court of Silver
Okay.
Flames.
Oh, so they've changed their naming structure. Well, that's not helpful for anyone, is it?
All right, I feel amazed and proud of myself and also a little bit ashamed. But also, that is an adult series, Mark. That is not YA.
I apologize.
Only according to booksellers has that distinguishment been made. Is distinguishment a word? Yeah, like the world would call it YA, but it has recently been recategorized as adult fiction, I think because it's a bit racy for the young folk.
Well, tell it to Google. 'Cause- This one, somebody is bound to get this one very quickly. Which novel opens with the line, "Last night I dreamt I went to Mandalay again"?
Lando,
Go for it.
Rebecca.
Yeah. Okay, next question. This is a tough one, I reckon. Memories burn like a forest fire. Heavy rain turns any funeral pyre to mud. Is this a quote from Jane Eyre or a line from a Billie Eilish song?
Oh, clouds. I really hope it's a Billie Eilish song. I don't even care if it is or it isn't, but
Yeah, it's a Billie Eilish song. a song called When I Was Older.
I won't seek it out. I'll just take your word that that's
It
the
exists.
correct- Yeah.
I've read Jane Eyre enough times, it did not ring a bell.
All right. Next question. What is the title of the new Nevermoor book due at the end of September?
Lando.
Go for it.
Hollow Pop.
Hollow Pox, but there's a second part of the title.
Oh, damn it. There's something of Morrigan Crow, but I can't remember what it is.
Yeah, look, I'll give you that.
It's not the short second light with Morrigan Crow. We know that.
The Hunt.
The short second life.
Which one?
Hollow Pox, The Hunt.
Hunt for. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. What is the title of the novel that Love, Simon is based upon? And for a bonus point, what is the name of the spin-off streaming series set in the Simon-verse?
Cloud.
I heard Cloud first.
Yeah, so Love Victor is the spin-off series.
Yep.
But what was I didn't even understand the question. I thought Love Simon was the name of the book.
No, it's
No.
not.
Oh, okay, cool. And I don't know. I've obviously only ever seen it in the film tie-in version where I swear it's got the film cover on the front saying Love Simon. So I'll leave that for someone else, but I knew it was Love Victor.
All right, who wants to jump in with the actual title?
Lando.
Yep.
It is Simon versus the Homo sapiens agenda.
Very good.
That's not a separate book. I just assumed that was a sequel to that.
Okay.
Nah, same book.
It was just a recovered book.
I've got another book quote for you. Which Twilight Saga book does the following quote come from?
Oh, God.
I want you and I want you forever. One lifetime is simply not enough for me. Which one?
Paganini. I feel like it was in Breaking Dawn where they get married. It could be any.
Cass, you got it right.
Yay.
Pretty good. All right. And the last question. So before we go into the last question, just a points check. So Shanu is on 2, Cass is on 1, and Sarah is on 7. So
Sarah.
this is really, but this one we'll see.
Is this worth 25 points?
This one is worth 100 points, like the snitch.
With an arbitrary amount of points.
I mean, we could make it interesting. I'll make it worth I'll make it worth 6 points so that anyone can win or tie. Anyway, that's the point of this game. I make it up as I go along. Which Hunger Games did Haymitch win? The 50th, the 55th, the 45th, or the 48th?
Oh, F.
Your answer, Sarah?
Lando.
Yeah.
This is a guess.
Okay.
I'm going to say the 45th.
Anybody else want to have a go?
All the other ones?
The 50th, the 55th, or the 48th?
Shanu's waiting till I go so that she knows how to start. Could I suggest the 50th?
You can suggest that, and you're absolutely correct.
Oh my goodness, look at that. Sweeping right at the last second.
And that's a 6-point question, which means that now you're tied with Sarah.
Oh,
Amazing.
Wait, and I have to go to the tie-break question, which last time I did this, I did it this way, and it was good. It worked. Hang on.
It's good. He convinces everyone.
It's good. This is a good question. All right, here we go. What is the #1 best-selling book on the Booktopia homepage right now?
Paganini. The Happiest Man on Earth.
Yes, Cass. The Happiest Man on Earth by Eddie.
It helps that I do the bestseller lists myself.
I'm very glad to know that you actually do pay attention.
I think Cass had a bit of an edge on that, considering she uploads the content.
I mean, you actually manage the Sarah J. Maas category. And
Yeah, that's true.
It's not a kid's book, so I know that.
it's not a kid's book.
Look, I specifically tailored that to your interests, Sarah and Shanu. It's not my fault if Cass is just like to win.
Firstly, Cass won on a question that was nothing to do with the young adult, and secondly, just because the young adult is a wide and varied genre, it is not a genre. It is a wide and varied I don't know what you call it, but there's a lot of stuff in it. And just because you like one thing from YA doesn't mean you like all things from YA. Just so you know.
I have not a competitive bone in my body when it comes to quizzes, so I'm more than happy to concede my actual victory.
Your actual It sounds very genuine, Sarah. I always believe that.
We all know the truth.
I've been watching too much The Politician.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you guys so much for competing in Book Fight, and thank you for bringing your recommendations and all your insights to our discussions today. And thank you to everybody who listened. Weekend Booktopian is produced by Nick Wasiliev, and you can find links to the books we've discussed today in the episode description, or you can find them at booktopia.com.au. You can listen to all of our shows for free on SoundCloud and iTunes, including our recent interviews with Lily Wilkinson and Jenna Kiam. We'll be back next week with another episode of the Weekend Booktopian. Until then, thanks for listening and never stop reading.
Thank you for listening to the Booktopia podcast channel. Don't forget, you can subscribe to us on SoundCloud and iTunes for free and get access to hundreds of author discussions, book analysis pieces, and more. Or, if your eyes need a workout, head to Booktopia TV on YouTube. Don't forget, for all books featured in this podcast and for access to a whole bunch of other fun content on our blog, head to Booktopia, Australia's local bookstore, at booktopia.com.au.